This is episode 135 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 135 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Dave Knight on today's episode, and Dave's a great guy. Really enjoyed talking with him. He works as a police officer, and he is also a very aggressive real estate flipper. He's actually flipping 5 properties right now. He flips investment properties, which is actually a bit different than most guests. Most people who are flipping who come on this show, it's usually just single family homes, but not Dave. He's actually flipping investment properties because he has an angle on that. If plan A doesn't work out and he can't sell it the way he wants to sell it, he can actually just refinance and keep that property and have a cash flowing asset. And if you know anything about me and my strategy for investing, I love that approach. I always like having a plan A, B, and C, and that's just a great methodology. I've also flipped investment properties myself and can speak to the peace of mind that gives, knowing that you have the opportunity to keep it if you want and it still works. On top of being a savvy investor and a police officer, Dave also has a podcast, the 911 Wealth Network podcast. I highly recommend you check it out. He has many different guests and he has a focus on helping people who are in the first responders line of work to achieve financial freedom and not rely on their pensions. So I really appreciate what Dave does. I think he does a great job of his branding and putting himself out there. And it's really interesting talking to him and watching his journey. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode as well. As always, I'm going to ask you to take a quick moment just right now and rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. If you haven't already, I'd highly recommend also that you grab a copy of my cash flow spreadsheet from my website. Just go to andrew-hines.com and you will see the link there to grab that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into episode 135 with Dave Knight. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Dave Knight, fellow podcaster, on the podcast today. Dave, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
So first off, you've got the podcast, what do you call it?
First Responders Wealth Network.
Which is all for first responders. So you're a policeman.
Police officer, yeah, full-time, still working on the road, and basically geared towards first responder community. So police, fire, paramedic, all that stuff.
And I think your inspiration for doing that was you didn't love the pension idea with these programs. You thought there needed to be more.
I kind of like fell into it, to be honest. It just, I had the podcast, or, I was just doing the real estate stuff on the side. Rather than working the overtime, I started getting that passive income and learn a little bit more about the pensions and what's going on down in the U.S. as much as they are here. And so I just had a real interest towards real estate investing, and no one was really speaking to our own community. So I thought, what a better way to make a podcast, and just kind of as a hobby, met people like, yourself and other people you get to interview, and you learn along the way and just share the info. So.
Yeah, it's such a good networking thing. That was like, I'd say that's totally. Like 90% of my motivation for doing this is just being able to be in the circles with the people I am and have a lot of good conversations.
Yeah, I learned like so much, but the networking, like you said, is really the biggest thing that came out of it for sure.
Yeah, networking is where it's at for sure. And just having those people on your telephone, being able to give them a call when you want to, or a text.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so that's big. Now, as far as the pension issue, or I think you had mentioned that there were some pensions that just weren't able to support when people were retiring in the States. Was this the problem you identified?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's issues all over, really. I mean, this last year was a big one. I think it was -3 or -2.7% is what our pension fund returned through the pandemic. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that had issues throughout the pandemic, but it's a long trend that's concerning for people who really understand and look at it. But examples in the States really is what kind of sparked my interest and kind of concern. There's a lot of pension funds down there, California, Illinois, Long Island, that have been, they're down to 60% funded all the way to insolvent, so they've really, and there's a lot of trend that you see throughout the world that's happening here. So it's people, living longer. It's not enough people contributing versus people retiring. It's the amount of return that's expected every year is increasing, and now you got inflation that's just completely out of hand. When you start putting all those factors in, it's concerning. So that's just why my whole spiel is don't rely on pension alone.
Yeah, I just think it's a risky thing, and same with relying on a job, right? Like you want to have your own independence.
Totally.
And that way, if for some reason, I know in your case your job's pretty secure, but you know, I just had the last guy that was on this podcast, he was laid off from his job. So you know, you can think that you're all good, but then you might not be one day.
And there's other things like small stuff that people don't realize too. If you get hurt on the job, well, we have great benefits, but there's a lot of those benefits that are limited. And they run out pretty quickly. Like I can name people on my hand just on my shift that have gone for, you know, rehab or some type of physio, and it runs out pretty quick. And then that's all out of their own pocket. Yeah. You know, just one small example, but you know, if you have some passive income or just think outside the box and get any type of income stream going, it sparks the conversation.
Okay, so when did you start that podcast?
It's been like 3 years now.
3 years, okay. Yeah, you've been at it longer than I have.
Yeah? I think your viewers and your numbers are a little higher than mine.
I didn't know about yours. But you're very niche specific, right?
Yeah,
so,
totally.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So anyways, I know you're very busy though. So you mentioned to me before we got rolling, you're 4 on, 4 off with the shifts with work. And then you're pretty much a full-time real estate investor on top of that.
Yeah, I guess pretty much. I'm juggling a lot. Actually, I was just on another podcast, and they're like, "How do you manage all that?"
Yeah, what are you managing? Break it down for me.
Okay, we'll break it down. So obviously, I'm working full time on the road, so 4 on, 4 off schedule, 2 days, 2 nights. I'm very fortunate to be in a position where my nights end around midnight to 3 a.m., whereas a lot of guys on my shift are working till like 6 or 7 in the morning. So I've kind of lucked onto that little train there for a couple of years, but. Working full time and have 5 projects on the go right now for flips, 3 multifamily conversions, 2 single family, and I got obviously the podcast, and I'm just started an online course that I created. I was fortunate to connect with a lot of people throughout the podcast that I met, like we were talking about. Networking is key, and was able to bring them on, share their information. So I packaged it together. So it's a real boot camp. It's literally the online boot camp for real estate investing, specifically in Canada and the US. And so that's out there. And then now just started some coaching as well, getting people in their first property.
Wow. Holy crap.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, man.
What drives you to do all that?
I love it, man. It's just, I like creating. I like the opportunity. I like always improving myself, pushing myself. It's funny, like a lot of guys on the job or working, they're completely content with, getting that paycheck and a pension. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just have a little desire for more, right? I don't want to work a 30 years shift work. I want to be able to retire early, which it's hopefully fairly soon. And, have that passive income that I can live on, not rely on one job. And I'm really motivated now by the podcast and the feedback I'm getting with people through the network now with first responders. And I just have a real passion for kind of doing more.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah. So what does your portfolio look like right now?
So I just last year or a couple years ago, I sold a few properties. So right now I have the 5 that I'm working on. I have my personal residence, which is we talked about in Burlington there. And so we're working on that. And then a student rental in Welland.
Okay, well, it's nice.
Yeah. So,
and then the others are flips. So you're big on the flips then.
Yeah, right now. Yeah. It's kind of part of my strategy to get that passive income as quickly as possible. So, cash flow is somewhat tighter these days, right? So
it's a little harder unless you put in a big down payment, right?
Totally,
it's just coming to a bigger down payment is really what it is.
Exactly. So I kind of had a decision to make. How am I going to get my passive income up to my active income as quickly as possible? And looking at the numbers and kind of figuring things out, well, it's going to take a lot longer to get that mortgage down and get a higher passive flow
versus you can just flip X number of properties per year.
Exactly. Get that lump sum, keep it under the corp, get that low tax, and eventually be able to pay myself with that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I've generally had a similar thought process. Before I started getting hired to build things for other people, my income strategy was, okay, I need to flip, 1 to 2 properties a year and can keep the rest. Yeah, so I just knew it was pretty much 1 a year would do it, but maybe 2 is like really good.
I mean, don't get me wrong. No one could have ever predicted what the real estate market's done the last, year and a half. But so would have I been better holding on those properties? Probably. in hindsight, holding on for a couple of years and then unloading. But I feel like, to be honest, man, I've really kind of ramped up the last couple of years versus the last, say, 5. So, I got my team now. I got some private capital. People are willing to invest. And, I got my systems in place now, and I got a specific strategy that I use that's working. So I'm just kind of rinsing and repeat right now.
And how long have you been operating on that type of pace? You said about 3 years now?
Like paces and doing
to do
everything?
like 5 at a time?
No. Honestly, this last year and a half is when I've kind of ramped it up.
Okay, before that was
Before
it like
it was
one
just
flip
one
at
or
a time?
two a year. Yeah, 1 or 2 a year for the last 2 or 3 years.
And what were you usually shooting for on a flip? Like what kind of margin, like in your worst case?
Close to 6 figures.
So your worst case was 6 figures?
My worst, it was like around there. It was hovering around there.
Now, was that the plan or was that the result?
The plan would have been, it was around like the 80 mark.
Okay,
and
but
then
you've just always been better than your plan.
Well, I mean, the market's been on my side.
Exactly.
Right?
See, that's the thing. The market saves.
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. Not even saved me. It's like propelled. Right?
It propels. Yeah.
So, but I also had the mindset of I'm only flipping multifamily income properties.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's quite the niche.
Up until just this last little bit, because I got a good deal. Because my mindset was, if for whatever reason the market softens, I'm going to be refinanced and I'm going to hold on to these properties. Yeah.
I love that strategy. So you got a good plan B.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
good plan B, right?
Yeah. Well, I was always taught to have a couple exit strategies. So the single families kind of make me a little nervous, unless they're real quick. But these are longer projects.
Right. Yeah. They make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Who taught you that?
Just listen to people, man.
I love it.
You got to keep your ears open.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's probably the biggest lesson I ever learned.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in the real estate investing, that was the single biggest lesson I ever learned. Is if you're entirely reliant on Plan A working, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, as long as things go great, awesome. Mm-hmm. But what about when things don't?
Totally. And I've had mentors over the years, but the same thing is everyone thinks they're heroes in the last 10 years, right?
I know. There's a lot of arrogance there, isn't there? Like, I'm so smart.
I try and keep it, to a minimum, because it's like, it's so true. It's like everyone who's holding a banana is, winning, right? So.
Yep. The older I get, the more I realize I don't know shit.
Yeah, totally. Well, you talk to the senior guys. They've been doing it for like 50, 60 years. I mean, they're all rolling their eyes like, how can this keep on going? And like, and then you talk to people who are been doing it only 5 or 10 years, and I'm in that category. You got to watch yourself because you think you're invincible, right? But you're not.
Yeah. And that's what they say in Florida. And you'll hear from the people in Alberta that just be like, oh, we feel very uncomfortable with what's happening because we've seen it all go down. Like we've seen it go from $350 a door to $35 a door.
That's crazy.
Like a 90% drop. And I had that conversation, and everybody down there in the investor community, especially a lot of the older guys at these meetups I would go to, they're just like, this can't continue. They're like, we're going to wait it out. I'm like, well, on one hand, I totally agree with you. On the other hand, you haven't seen Ontario. And I'm like, there's two sides to this, because Ontario's been going up forever and it will come down eventually. And it has actually, it did go down a bit in 2017, but it's going to come down eventually. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like the people who've been around a long time or have seen or have been through that stuff, they approach this differently. And a lot of the guys I'll talk to from Alberta, they'll say, no, we keep a lot of equity. You'll hear that a lot from people in Alberta because they know one day it's coming.
Yeah. And a part of me for the exit strategy that I'm doing just in my specific situation, it's not for everyone. Like I'm not, advocating everyone to start going out and flipping. It's just for my specific situation, this is my game plan and whatever. But even if you look at like, 2008, 2009 here, things went down, but I mean, it wasn't as drastic as obviously, your Florida market that you're talking about. I mean, that was just insane.
How much did they go down here? I wasn't paying attention at that time. I should have been, but I wasn't.
I don't have an exact number, but I mean,
like a 10% drop.
No, yeah, even like a 20% drop. It doesn't take much to
that could upset a lot of people. Yeah,
it can upset if you're flipping. But I mean, it bounced back. I remember looking at charts, and it was like the U.S. was way down here. And for those who aren't watching, I got my hand like way down the table, and then Canada was maybe about like
not nearly
a quarter
as dramatic. In the States, it was enough to destroy people's lives left, right, and center.
Totally.
Yeah. Here, it was more upsetting, but not,
And if you held and you're cash flowing, you were good.
And I've generally come to learn that time heals all wounds with real estate as long as you can ride the storm out, right? That, and the cash flow is the way to do that. Obviously, not to beat a dead horse and say that too many times on this show, but I imagine you have a very similar philosophy based on the way you're talking.
Yeah, I mean, I just try and be aware, and just be conscious of my numbers and not get too greedy and thinking that everything's just going to go up. So
yeah, and how are you finding stuff? I guess this is a multi-pronged question because a lot of this is probably dependent on your team and your ability to know what stuff costs. Mm-hmm. But what are you finding, number one, and how are you finding it in Hamilton? Which sounds like your main market.
So as far as just properties or materials building, or what do you mean?
Properties, like what are you targeting? What kind of property? What kind of renovation? Why do you know your margins are what they are?
Yeah, so I'm looking for single family homes that I can convert. Or duplexes where I can fit in a third unit.
On the mountain or?
No, in downtown core.
Okay, so core like south of like Maine?
South of Maine is ideal. I have one that's in between King and Maine. Okay. Haven't gone down, I guess it would be north of King yet. Okay,
are you like Gage Park in West or are you?
Yeah, so I'm everywhere from... I get all confused because it's opposite of like Burlington. Yeah. But so it'd be south. So I'm west of Gage, but yet east of downtown.
Okay, yeah. So that's a nice little pocket there, like the Stinson and Corktown.
And that's really all I know. So I just really focus in. I know if something pops up, I jump on it.
So you know your numbers. Okay, and what are you getting? Like a 2-story, 2.5-story?
2.5 at least, yeah.
So they're always 2.5. Are they like 2,000 square feet, including everything?
Yeah, the one I'm doing now is just shy of 2,000. Which kind of hurt me on my refi a little bit, but I was able to get it back up on a second attempt. But everything is hovering around 2,000. I had a couple on Sherman Avenue, which is just south of Main Street, and those were about 24, 25, and those really helped with the extra square foot.
Okay, so you get a lot higher appraisal.
I mean, my experience, it's been the 2.5.
So 2.5 is good. And what do you like about that?
Just the extra space. I mean, I can't quite push the rents as high if it's just the single floor because you can maybe like max out with a 2-bed, 1 bath. Yeah. But if you get that extra half story up there, you can fit the bedroom or maybe even a bedroom and a bath. So it really jumps up the rent. Okay,
so you're going to do like the upper half of the house, so the top floor and then the half story. Those are one apartment, and then you've got the main floor and the basement as the other.
Yes.
Now, are you putting in a private staircase that all share, but that's outside of the units that runs up the inside?
So it depends. No, so it depends on the property. Some have, but each will always have its own independent.
So it has to have its own entrance.
Yeah.
So you have to have a staircase.
I've been fortunate. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. One of the properties was like the main entrance, kind of like a little main like a little corridor area that would have entrance to the unit 1 and 2. Both units.
But then if you do that, then you need to have a separate means of egress if they have a common exit. Right.
And that specific property, I did the last that one. I had to build a separate staircase in the back,
like a fire escape or something.
Yeah, and it was massive. But
yeah. See, those get expensive. Yeah, right? Especially if you go with steel, you can get into like $100,000.
Yeah. Oh my God, no. I lucked out that property I had a buddy who's a framer, and he came with his apprentice and hammered it out.
Built it in wood?
Wood.
Wood is cheaper, although that's getting pretty expensive too.
I don't even know what that would fit up. I mean, everything's gone like crazy, right? I don't even know what it's at right now, but I haven't heard much from my contractors.
In terms of what, wood prices?
Yeah,
they've come down a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where it's at now. I think 2x4x8 is somewhere in the $6 ballpark right now, which is better than the 14.
I
paid $14.85 for the worst I paid. Yeah,
that's
May 19th.
What is it normally like 3?
Like $285 probably before all this. $285.
That's insane.
So yeah, we're only like still 300% too expensive. Yeah. But and I don't expect that to actually come down. I think that, it might come down a bit more, but it's never going to go back to what it was. Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out. Yeah. But yeah, generally that's part of the game, right? That's the inflation in this game right now with what we're going through. Mm-hmm.
And it's tough on, the contractors too. I mean, they set a certain quote, at a certain price, and then next thing you know, the world turns upside down. They're like, knocking on your door, like, "Hey, Dave, man, prices are a little higher on the lumber now." So you do different strategies. Like in the basement, we switch it over to aluminum. Yeah. So
those are a little cheaper, but not that much.
No, but now they're like pretty much like lumber too.
It's also
everything goes shortage. Yeah.
All we've gotten in this last year and a half, which I knew was going to happen and called out very hard from the very beginning, was a lesson in supply and demand. We've got an economics lesson over the last 2 years, and as long as we keep encouraging people to stay home and not produce, then everything's going to keep getting more expensive.
Man, it's crazy. I don't want to get off topic here, but my nephew, he was working at the movie theater like a couple times a week. He's in high school. He's about 16 or 17 now. He was making more on CERB than he was working.
Yeah.
And then now he's finally made the decision to go back to work, and I'm proud of him. But he's literally going to be making less money now, working his tail off, than he is making CERB.
Right. Yeah. It's the real problem. I mean, I noticed it trying to get general laborers. Like I'll have guys like he calls me when we do a phone interview. Says, okay, here's my site supervisor's number. Make sure you're there at whatever time he tells you to. Yeah. Like coordinate the day. Show up. Mm-hmm. Doesn't show up. Literally called him the night before, so confirm the address. Okay, good, got it. Doesn't show up. Doesn't call. Never heard from him again.
Crazy.
Yeah. Like just. What day and age are we in? Like, where's the honor? You know?
Oh man, don't.
I'm aging myself here. Where's the honor? I mean, hopefully we can steer back towards a day where people, kind of operate more out of integrity. I know in our crowd, a lot more integrity exists.
Yeah, I think we have a little more grit too. I think we're starting to lose that grit, and as soon as you start losing that, people get soft and don't want to, step up to the plate. Well,
I've posted this on Instagram a while ago. The hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. I posted that on Instagram a while ago, and I asked people, where do you think we are right now? And like 99% of the responses were absolutely where good times create weak men. And unfortunately, and this is not even gender specific. I mean, it's both men and women. It's created weakness across the board. What are we going to do with that, right? And it's very overwhelmingly obvious to everyone that that's where we are. So I don't know how we fix that, but I do know that our next generations, I do think things are about to get hard for a lot of people, a lot harder than they are, and we're going to see a lot more people become proficient in specific trades and skills. Yeah. We're going to have to, right? We're going to have to become more self-sufficient, because what happens when you want to get food and the cost is quadruple, right? I mean, the incentive for people to garden at home is going to go through the roof. So a lot more people are going to learn how to do that. And who knows? I drove by some Mennonites on the weekend, and they were milling their own lumber. And I'm like, man, I want that. They're chopping down their own trees, milling their own lumber.
Actually, speaking of trees, I have a tree on my property. It's like it's a large, what's the, I'm losing my mind on what tree it is. Not the oak. What drops the nuts?
Walnut tree.
Walnut tree.
Yeah.
And this thing's massive. Yeah. I'm gonna be pissing off some neighbors, but it literally drops everything on our backyard.
So you can get a mobile lumber mill to come, and then they can actually run off all the boards, and then they just need to take it to a kiln. They can actually bring the mill right to you.
Well, I got to get the permit first. And like I said, I'm going to be pissing off a lot of neighbors. But I mean, if you stand out there, you got to wear a hard hat in the fall. So
that's a hardwood though, right? You want a softwood for framing, but you could use that for flooring.
I think I'm going to do that. Yeah.
Walnut's expensive.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah, it's good for flooring for sure.
Anyway, sorry,
not to go tangent. No, I actually love these like random discussions on the podcast.
Well, I was actually a little worried because you and I share a lot of same philosophy on a lot of things that you post, and I'm a little more tame, maybe because of my position. But I didn't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, so I'm glad I switched.
But this is why I actually post less lately on social media. It's because I'll never be a hypocrite, and I'll always speak my mind. So I'm either going to speak my mind or I'm just not going to say anything. Yeah. I'm not going to be fake ever. And I know I know a lot of people like such as yourself, like you don't always want to say stuff. And where we're at now, I think people have more or less tuned the overall situation out, and for better or for worse. I mean, for mental sanity, probably good. Yeah. But I don't know if in the long run of the bigger picture, that's good.
I know it becomes exhausting. It really does.
I don't know if I don't really hold out hope that people are going to come around and say, you know what, this situation in our country is not okay and what's happening isn't okay. I feel like that's the days of that being a potential are kind of gone now. So now it's kind of like, every man and woman for yourself,
themselves.
make sure you get your affairs in order.
And again, it just kind of brings it in full circle of don't rely on one thing. Don't rely
and definitely
on,
don't rely on the government.
Yeah, and exactly. And, it comes down to the pensions. Like, don't rely on one income. You can always use your job. What's your backup? What happens if your spouse dies and you lose that income? You know what I mean? And it's just little things like that, aside from what the byproduct of investing in multiple streams of income, of time, your free time, your resources, your ability to do more and see more and help more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I just think it's an exercise now more than ever in eliminating dependence in your life. Mm-hmm. Where are you dependent? Yeah. Diversify, right? In your investments, you diversify. Yeah. In your sources of food, we want to diversify. Like supply chains, we diversify. Contractors, we diversify. I think if we keep that in mind and know, well, what would happen if I lost my source of this? Yeah. What would I do? Yeah. And I love the idea of just learning new skills, becoming proficient, at least a little bit enough to know if I really needed to dig into it, I could. Yeah. And then maybe just stack my bookshelf with a bunch of stuff on the topic.
Yeah, a prime example, I'm not going to say where I work, but a lot of services even surrounding me are seeing a decline in people applying, but also an increase in people transferring outside of the GTA because of how expensive it is.
They don't want to be in the GTA.
Well, it's expensive to live, right? And there's certain pockets that are more expensive than others, obviously. But, there's a lot of people transferring where the cost of living is significantly lower. You get paid the same, but the cost of living is lower. So that's having a toll on people too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I had... Like, my wife doesn't have as much flexibility with like location to live, and I get it. We like it. We like being able to live here because we're close to family here. Yeah. But I would have moved to London, Niagara region, whatever, for a sweet house hack or whatever. But, house hacking's off the table with Jordan. That ain't happening.
Yeah, so. Trust me. I tried to have that conversation with Erin, my fiance, but if we move anywhere, it'll be palm trees. So
palm trees. Yeah, I like the sounds of that. I think you and I had connected over this. I believe you also have dual citizenship.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Are you? Were you born in the States?
No, my mom's American.
Okay, so you were able to get that.
And my sister was born there as well.
So that's an incredible flexibility that you have there.
Big time. Actually, I had a little story. So right now I have everything under my corp, right? Canadian corp, standardized structure that we all preach. And I was just talking to my CPA, and he actually said, I need to either dissolve or be aware, because as soon as I make the transition over to the US, they look at your last few years of your earnings under your corp. And an American owning a Canadian corporation, I am actually going to get taxed on that. So the way that I have it set up now, I need to have like almost an exit strategy, because I haven't, maybe I shouldn't say this over the air, but I haven't I got to file my taxes.
Yeah, you have
right?
to like a build up. I think a lot of Canadians that have American citizenship, they didn't file because they weren't there. So you have to like catch up.
Exactly. So that's what I'm going through now. There's an actual amnesty program that you got to go through. So just be aware of that if anyone is out there.
Apparently, even if you hold a visa, you have to file in the US no matter whether you were there or not.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot more as I go. As you start diving in and you want to start investing down there, then you got to poke your head up out of the sand eventually, right?
So I was speaking with a friend of mine about this, and he's a pretty smart guy, well connected, and he was asking, he's like, well, what did you set up for your American structure? I told him, and he's like, well, I'm curious why your accountant didn't recommend an international trust. So I guess you can create a trust that works internationally. You obviously have to have a trustee, but I think it works better for multinational ownership. I know nothing about this, so this is something that maybe if I get an accountant that knows something about this, that'd be a useful conversation to have.
You know what? Those I probably butchered my example or explanation of why that is just before there, but it's the Canadian citizen doing that international corp or trust or whatever the case may be might be, perfect and okay. But it's the issue of where you're a dual citizen or an American citizen may not be allowed to
own a Canadian corp.
Yeah. Or you can, but then there's certain tax,
they're going to want to like tax your equity or something.
Yeah. Again, I'm not even going to try and explain it and give suggestions here. Talk to your CPA.
Talk to your accountant. I guess that's always the end of the answer, right? Because these, first off, these rules changed like weekly,
Yeah.
maybe daily. So you never know what's going on. Like it's so convoluted, this whole process.
It is, and that's why I just put my trust in the people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, you want to find experts. Of course, do your own research too. Understand conceptually what's going on. I think is big. I'm very big with that with my renovations too. I want to understand conceptually what's happening.
100%.
Yeah. So back to your properties and what you're doing. So you're getting these 2.5 stories.
Yeah.
Your separate entrances for each, ideally, unless you have to share, and then you have some egress like staircases and what have you. And so you're typically buying at what price point?
So, literally it used to be around the 500 mark, and then now that's kind of creeped up to the 6s, try and get a good spot. So I lucked out with the products that I have. I purchased it just before, on the cusp of when everything started kind of ramping up. So I fortunately, here's a perfect example of just taking advantage of the market. I found one for 500 as a legal duplex with a room in the basement. And I bought it for 5.
2.5 story?
Yes, 2.5. It's about 2,200 square feet. And single car driveway, which in that area downtown, you do 1.33 for each unit. So it would have been unable to really try and get the third or even the second, really. But it was legal duplex. I checked the zone verification.
So it already was, so you didn't need a minor variance.
Exactly, yeah. So I just put it up on a bunch of the Facebook groups, and now I got 2 offers coming in today.
Is
and
that
I'd be
how you sell?
wholesaling.
It's just private.
No, it's just an
investment
opportunity. I'm just kind of. I was gonna keep it, and then.
Do you list any of them though, with realtors?
So I actually purchased this one with a realtor. So my realtor has been able to score me a couple good ones.
Okay.
Just by her network and kind of pocket listings. I've only bought a couple through wholesalers, but majority of my stuff's been all through
on
MLS.
the market, or just through realtors.
I found one, or my realtor's like, hey, this is coming on the market, or I know someone who's going to be listing. We can get this taken care of without listing it. So that kind of thing. But yeah, so 6 figures on a wholesale deal is not too bad.
So this one's 500 to buy. Your renovation, are you doing a gut for the inside?
Yeah, so I'll give an example. The one I just listed right now. I bought it for 530. I got about including appliances and everything like that. I forget what the exact number is. I'm up to about 280, 270, something like that.
Okay, so we'll say 280 including carrying costs.
Yeah, that's everything in.
Yeah, so you're in for 810.
Yeah, 810, and I just listed for 1.225.
A duplex can get 1.225.
It's 3 unit.
Oh, that one's a 3 unit.
Yeah.
So
I need that third unit in order to get the income up.
Yeah. So
I'm pushing for 1.225. We'll see.
Okay, let's say you got the 1.225.
1.2. I think I'll be able to do it, and if not, I'll be able to refi for 1.2. I've already got an appraisal.
Okay, so you got an appraisal at 1.2.
Yeah, just so I know my exit in case I need to.
Oh, do you do that? You just get an appraisal just so you know?
Not always. To be honest, what happened was I had a off-market sale already lined up. They had finance conditions, so they went and did the appraisal. This is a crazy part. I posted on my social media too. So one came in at 980, and then the next one came in at 1.2. How do you get a difference of 220?
Even back in the day, doing my mortgage business back in 2012, 2013, I'd have 2 different appraisers go out appraise the same property. One would say 370, the other would say 270, same property.
Yeah.
How could you be that off?
What are your comparables? That's why I'm I want this report. I want to see what you're comparing.
And I've seen them. They just find different comparables, and you read both, and it seems to make sense for both. Yeah. And that's really why appraising is more of a art than a science.
Yeah, and kind of connecting with certain people who understand the certain multifamily as well.
You got to know. That's why you got to pick your appraiser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Make sure you got one that gets it.
Again, you learn as you go, right?
Yeah. Okay, so if you had rented that one out, or did you rent it first?
No, it's actually vacant. Usually, so.
For listing for sale, you probably don't want to rent it.
So this is the thing, my last couple have been above average finishings, kind of a higher end scale, above average, nothing crazy, but and my rents have been, definitely on the high end for Hamilton, right? Breaking records for rent people like I tell other people and they're like, you're not getting that. I'm like, yeah, man. And so I used to, or two of them, I had them rented, fully rented, and then I could prove the actual rent. And then I would sell it kind of like an apartment. You kind of just base it on the income, and as long as they can. So there has been times where they've had to come with a difference because it would only get appraised for a certain amount. Yeah. But you say, listen, this is worthwhile because it can support itself.
So you're saying they're not getting 80%?
It depends. Like one didn't, one did, and this one will as long as the appraisal comes in.
Well, say if it was for Scotiabank, they're going to do a market rent. And they're not. Exactly. They don't even really care what your rents are. I mean, although if you talk to the appraiser and you show them the leases, they might support it.
And that's what happened the one time. But now, like this one's vacant, so they'll do market rents.
Yeah, which is not going to be as good.
No, and that's unfortunate. But again, there's also the mindset of people want to buy a property and they don't want to think about the idea of, I might have a bad tenant in there. I don't know about these tenants. Yeah. So sometimes, in my experience, the last couple of rounds, they like the idea that it's vacant and they can pick the tenants.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's almost like a safer way if you're going to list on MLS plus,
and it's easier,
and showings, like that's everything about showings, it is just so much, because you don't know what a tenant's going to do. Are they going to bring their junk in? If you want it to show well, just leave it open and say, look, I've got, you could even just show, like, post it for rent and show how many responses you're getting. Yeah. This will rent in a snap, but I want you to pick your own tenants. I don't want you to inherit tenants. Yeah. Easy as that. Who wouldn't agree with that? The only time I would disagree is like when I sell my student rentals, always has been the case. Of course they want it rented. That's different.
You want to start with some cash flow from day one.
Yeah. And then it's just like literally you show them a cash flow sheet. This is what you're buying. So much more important than the property itself is how the property performs. Yep. Predictably performs too. Mm-hmm. So,
and this is the first one I've done where I've actually staged all the units. So when they come through, they can actually envision it. And then in the back end, I also have ads up to rent it. So I'm actually doing both at the same time.
So you're showing them, you can show them that there's intent to rent.
Well, yes, there's interest at a certain rate. Like, my 3-bedroom and one, I'm asking 21, which is really high. And, there's interest there, right? So you could say, listen, at 21 for 3-bed, 1-bath, I got interest. This is
in a triplex.
In a tri, yeah.
Yeah, 21. I've heard of higher actually.
The one before, it was a little more square feet. This one's a little smaller.
Yeah, a little smaller. Okay.
But I had it in my spreadsheet. I always do like an analysis breakdown, a cash flow sheet to hand over to people who are interested. And I think I had 22, and I thought I was pushing it at that point. That was like 2 years ago. And then the guy ended up renting it for 24. Yeah. And I was like, how the hell did you get
24 in a triplex. I've heard of that, 2450. So, so if, say you did 21 in that one unit, what would you do in the rest of the house?
So I think I had, actually I just did it before I came over. What was it? 20, I think I did 21, 19, and 17.
17.
Yeah.
So that's $5,700 on that.
And then I got this is the kicker. So I got a 2-car detached garage that could be converted into a carriage house as well. Yeah. But right now it's a double-car garage. You could rent it out for $300.
So just rented it as a garage.
And I mean, that won't go towards the appraisal, obviously, but in the eyes of the purchaser, they're like, oh man, that's an extra $200-$300 in cash flow. So that's just the bonus. I mean, you don't luck out with garages all the time, but
I love those extra ways to monetize on properties. Mm-hmm. You got extra garage, extra land, whatever you can do. There's just so many ways to.
That's the other thing too. I usually create parking spaces for everyone too.
Nice.
So yeah.
Even if legal or not, because sometimes they're not going to be legal, right? Yeah. Like you can do it.
Yeah.
And I've done that. It's not legal.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll keep it there.
We won't get into anything else. Okay, so taxes on that place, what would they be?
Oh man, I gotta bring up my screen sheet.
Just ballpark, 5,000 or 6,000.
No, it was. I was doing Tisdale. I don't have them in front of me. I think it was 42, maybe something like that.
Okay, yeah, just ballpark. Yeah. And then insurance on something like that, probably like
one. Yeah, it was about. I think it was $150 a month, something like that.
Okay, so let's see, equals 150 times.
Or am I thinking construction insurance?
That's $1,800.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking.
No, that makes sense. 1,800, maybe 2,000. What
Actually, no, that's not construction because construction is ridiculous. Yeah, I'm paying $6K a year.
Yeah, the construction is really silly insurance. Okay, so maintenance on something like that, let's just hypothetically say it'd be like 7%. Utilities, are they all separated or no?
You do 7% for maintenance and repair?
Depends on the house. Like older, I'll go right up to 10%.
Yeah.
If it's really old and it looks like it needs a lot, I just budget 10% because realistically, you are going to have it, including life cycle maintenance.
So when I'm selling, when I'm doing like a marketing package,
you don't do that.
I don't add a lot of that stuff, right? No, but like as my own, I mean, I can break down what I do. But
right, it's like everyone's going to be different. Some people are going to be more conservative than others. I'm not going to flavor something for somebody if I'm selling something.
But if you want real numbers, then absolutely.
But I can absolutely give people real numbers. I'm just not going to sugarcoat and say it's worse than it is.
Yeah.
But for my own cash flow buffering in my own mind, 100%. I might do that.
Yeah. I'm very conservative on that too.
But okay, so say it was 7%. Utilities wise on that place.
So they're each individually metered.
But you're gonna have water and gas for the
water and gas. Yeah.
So those are probably gonna be what, like $4,000 a year for everything?
Yeah. Again, I always know monthly. What does that break down to?
What do you per month? Like $200 a month for?
Yeah. 300. I do about 300 for both.
300 times 12. So yeah, you're 3,600. Management, nothing there.
So I always do 0 because I never get property management.
Hypothetically, somebody might manage it.
But I would do about 400 in there if you're gonna do property management.
Yeah, I just did like 5%, but I mean, let's just see what that looks like. Even with 5%, so all those numbers, we started with a $5,700 gross rent. Yeah. Your taxes, your insurance, I budgeted 7% for maintenance, the $3,600 a year for the water and gas, management at 5%, which I don't think you're actually going to get it that cheap, but you could also self-manage, and then just pay a leasing fee, which I mean, that I'm more of a fan of that. Pay the leasing fee, but self-manage. 4.17% cap rate. And let's just say hypothetically you got the current market rates like 2.3%. You'd still have at a $1.2 million sale price $485 in cash flow. Yeah. And those are pretty conservative numbers. Yeah. So except for the management, which that part you have to.
It would be a wash if you're getting management.
If you're gonna pay, if you're gonna pay full pop management.
Did that include the garage as well? In there?
No garage income. So if we add on to $200 more,
you could do at least 2 to 3.
So you could potentially jack another $200 on top of that. Yeah. So not bad.
Yeah, and I think once you get in there, I mean, it's not like you're dealing with a 10-unit building. I mean, everything's all brand new. It's very low maintenance. Individual ductless units too. So each unit has its own.
Okay, so gas won't be nearly that bad.
No. And then the electric. So obviously each unit has its own electricity. Yeah,
so for their lights and stuff. So really their common stuff is what, hot water for the building.
Just the hot water and the gas.
Yeah, so you don't have a gas furnace in there, right? It's all
electric.
Yeah. Okay, so that's actually pretty good. That split. It's nice to see there's still a way to make cash flow here, but I do see the problem with the debt coverage ratio here is only 1.13.
Exactly.
You're going to have to put more money down on that. Yeah. So technically your cash flow is going to be even better because they're not going to give you as much of a mortgage. But
so what was the what was the debt? The DCR?
I have a debt coverage ratio of 1.13 to 1.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's typically banks might want to see anywhere from 1.1 to 1.2. But the kicker is that the banks have their own approach to evaluating your expenses, and they're going to differ from lender to lender. So just because my DCR says this doesn't mean somebody else agrees.
And a prime example why one was 980 and the other one was 1.2. Right.
With your appraisers, they might have been approaching the income and expenses differently for coming up with their cap rate, which is where they base their value on. Yeah, that's why appraising is not a science.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's
But you can play the game.
It's a key.
You can play the game.
The world is a game, buddy.
It's very true. Right. I tend to think of it more as theater these days, but
no doubt.
We're going to avoid the rabbit hole as much. I had Jacob Perez on here, and we're both pretty vocal about our opinions on things. And we're like,
I saw him.
We went there.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, try not
was
to.
Was he in Montreal? Was it? Was that his brother? I'm thinking.
His brother was in Montreal for the game. It's nice to see a few people, like I said, like we were talking, speak out, speak their mind, although it's becoming less and less.
Hey man,
it's scary.
It's it's a difficult situation.
It's a difficult situation indeed. So what's the bigger picture for you right now?
To be honest, just become financially free. I think that's number one for me. Getting to that certain point where I can exit out of policing a little earlier. I was a little hesitant of like telling people that and advertising that. But, at the end of the day, you can't knock for anyone trying to be financially free early, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then number 2 is just have more impact on the community. Like I really have found a little bit higher of a purpose to help my own community and learn how to invest and bring awareness to certain financial issues. Again, it's not just coming from me, it's bringing people who know a hell of a lot more than I do and bringing them to my own community. So definitely growing the business, definitely growing the network and the community.
Okay. So financially free, like when do you define the time is right? Like what does it take for you to say, hey, I'm financially free now?
I was talking to Adrian actually not too long ago about
Penozo?
this. Yeah. And he's like, because I was asking him, because he's, when I met him, he was kind of in my shoes. He was still working. He got his license. He was investing sort of. And, but anyway, the conversation happened like and this was off air. It's like, when were you ready? Like what point did you feel comfortable? And you're never going to feel comfortable. You're never going to feel great especially when you leave. And this is anyone, you jump any type of career, you go from something that you're familiar with, you're comfortable, quote unquote secure, to go to now you're essentially an entrepreneur. But I think I've just made it a goal of mine. I have a certain date in mind. And then also I say, as long as my passive income surpasses my active income right now, then I'll feel comfortable to be quote unquote at that stage. Now, I'll never stop working.
But passive income, do you consider the flip income passive income?
No.
So you're talking like rental properties. So you want to grow
Not
that
even
out.
Rental properties, just like lending.
Okay, so if you're doing some lending.
Yeah, like private
you're doing
investment.
some private lending now?
Yeah, I do private lending now. And then I'm invested in, like as an LP in apartments in the States.
Okay.
And I invest in like small stuff, but I invest in like little side stuff as well.
Okay, and then what about these properties that you're buying, the 5 that you're flipping? How much of your cash are you putting into those?
0.
So 0. You're doing that all fully leveraged. Mm-hmm. How are you able to do that?
So private capital. I've signed on the dotted line on 3 of them. So I'm able to get the mortgage, but then I get the down payment and the renovations through OPM.
OPM. So this is more like promissory notes or something like that. So people in your network that know you. So are you taking like an institutional first mortgage on these, or are you taking a private mortgage?
Both, depending on the property. Yeah. So like, for example, we get a mortgage with Scotia or whoever, and down payment will be promissory note, and then renovation, same thing.
For me, I would get them done because they want to see your down payment. You can't tell them you're taking promissory note money. But I would have money set aside for renovations that have been sitting for 3 and 4 months.
Well, I'm tapped out now, so I guess I can say that.
So I had that sitting there, and I would show the same batch of money as my down payment for every house.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Meanwhile,
but then they want to see it for a certain period of days. Right, so then you got to print out your statement.
But I would, for a good time there, I would just have the money for an entire flip in my account. Yeah. And that would be OPM, but it would have been there for long, And so yes, it's inefficient to a degree, but for me, that helped me sleep at night, knowing that the money was there, and my contractors loved it because I just paid them instantly. The money's there. I'm not waiting for construction draws. I had it. I loved doing that. So that actually helped me. All the stars aligned. I'm like, I can't buy that property. Oh, wait a minute. I have all this money sitting there. That'll work. Yeah. And then, that was back when there was 6% cap rates were a thing in London. Yes. And at a 6% cap, I could actually pay 12% on my down payment money and still cash flow. So I figured these little shortcuts. As long as I get a 6 cap, I can do that.
It's interesting. I always find it funny. Like some people, you go on these podcasts and you talk about what you're doing and you kind of do like a high level and you just kind of scratch the surface. But really, a lot of people don't dig in and talk about what they're really doing. Yeah. Like I'm not saying there's always a big gray area between, doing investing and kind of doing things certain ways. And, it's the nature of the business.
Should I not have said all that?
Exactly. No. And we're going to edit that out now. No. No, but it's true. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it's like anything. So.
Well, you know what? I could have changed my mind, but at the same time, like, I satisfied the requirement. What I did after that, it's funny having worked in the industry, just kind of understanding how those moving parts work. Yeah. It's like the funding department.
You don't think the banking system does the exact same?
Oh yeah,
like they leverage 10%, I 10 times every dollar we have in there. Come on.
Yeah. I've already done that fractional lending talk.
Yeah.
But You got to work your angles. I call that more working your angles, playing within the system.
Conservatively.
Conservatively working your angles in a defensible way.
Big time.
That you can stand behind. I mean, obviously, if I felt bad about what I did or didn't think it was right, I wouldn't be advertising it.
No, I know. And I didn't mean to like suggest that or anything.
No, I'm joking totally. I don't take any offense whatsoever.
Okay. But I think the biggest thing is just like having your numbers down, having a system, and like not being emotional about your process, and just being very analytical, knowing your numbers, knowing your systems. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like the amount of times you say no to an opportunity or a property where I wish I could have 10 more on the go, but the numbers aren't there, The
numbers got to work.
And I've actually gotten to a point now where, I'm finding it very difficult even moving forward. So I'm looking at other markets, I've almost feel like I've gotten to that point now where I've almost not tapped out of Hamilton, but it's getting to a point now where you definitely got to be aware of other markets.
Well, so you're talking, you still want to have a property that would cash flow if you had to keep it.
Absolutely.
With that criteria in mind, Hamilton's getting tougher.
But be extra conservative on top of that, because I'm obviously investing with other people's money and I got to give them a certain return.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put their money at risk. I wouldn't put myself in risk.
That's the thing that makes it tricky, right? And that's why if you're going to take other people's money, and I've done the same, is I buy something that I know I'm comfortable keeping, and if the worst, I've given that person, whoever lent me that money, my word, and that money's coming back.
100%.
So that's not a small responsibility. I don't take that lightly.
Absolutely, no, 100%. I'm with you there.
If you're going to be into something that's a little bit more speculative, then maybe do it as a JV and say we share the risk together.
Yes, and it's a hold, so you can hold on.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And we might be up and down on this, but we hold it.
Yes,
we wait
and your
it
cash flowing along the way.
Yeah, we wait it out. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so because it could get tricky, right? Because a deal might not work if you got to keep, if you got 200 grand private money out, it might not work if you can't refinance that out.
Yeah.
So that type of deal might make more sense as a JV.
Yeah.
If they come in and they know that money's in the deal and you'll ride it out if there's a problem.
Yeah, and you took the words out of my mouth. Only do deals that you would want to keep, and that's kind of my philosophy.
And I only renovate, which is probably not a great thing. I typically only renovate something that I would feel comfortable living in. Like I wouldn't renovate it in a way that I'd say I'd never sleep in this place. You know what I mean? Like it'll be enough for me. My standards aren't that high, but
there's a market for that. But it's definitely, I don't think it's what we're doing.
Yeah. But I just mean like I'll throw in quartz. I'll still do the basic kitchen, like the white shaker doors. That doesn't cost me much. It's a step above IKEA.
Yeah.
And my bathrooms are basic. I do vinyl plank everywhere, but I do tile surrounds in the bathtubs. Why not? Decent fixtures.
I don't think it takes much to
spice it up a bit
above average.
Right, exactly. And that's all I mean. Like I'm not gonna be a slumlord. That's just not gonna happen. No. I had a hard time with the Ohio stuff I used to own because it was stuff that I wouldn't stay in, and I've never owned stuff like that since. Like I've literally just gotten rid of anything I had that was like that. For better or for worse. I'm not saying that's some people have that mentality, other people do not at all.
Hey man, the 680 unit apartment that I'm invested in, that's actually just it's going to be closing this month.
680 unit?
Yeah.
So you're part equity owner?
The LP, yeah. So limited partner. Yeah. I think there's like 30 of us or so. Anyway, same deal. Like I would not sleep there. Like he goes there, he pretty much had a shotgun there. He has off-duty police officers going there at the beginning. Like he turned it around big time, but anyway, just
if that's
there's
a
market
the way
for
it
everything.
is, I have no issue with that. It's just I'm not going to be the right manager for that.
Definitely not.
That's going to have to be
that's
somebody
too many
else.
Phone calls.
That's going to have to be somebody else. Like I want to be able to deal with people that kind of get them. I can explain my vision. They resonate with my vision.
Big time.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, I always have a good relationship with my tenants. I find.
Yeah, like with the tenants and the student rentals, I'm like, as you guys can see, I made this place freaking awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they see it, it's awesome. Okay. I'm always going to be on top of things. You got an issue, you let me know, but here's how you let me know. And you're not calling me in the middle
You're better
of the
than me, man. I haven't been in my student rental in like 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, I got on that pattern of every 4 months, make sure I jump
got in early too. You got good cash flow when you first started. It's changed.
I actually sold all of them.
Oh, did you?
All of them. Yeah. You know what? I decided that asset class for me, I wasn't going to be in for some, and I sold a couple, and I'm like, okay, now I'm just going to keep going and deploying that money elsewhere. So in the process of redeploying it, so people listening to this, if you've got multifamilies, if you got a deal that makes a lot of sense, hit me up. Because anything BRRRR related, value add related, I'm interested. Same goes, Dave. You got something for me. You
definitely. And if he doesn't answer his phone, you just reach out to me.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, it's great having you on here. Finally doing it vice versa, because I know it was on your show.
Yeah.
When people want to reach you or follow you, what's the best way?
Just go to 911wealthnetwork.com, or you can reach out to me on Instagram, Dave Niter, just ER at the end of my name, and that's it.
Well, there's lots to know, lots to learn. I mean, I'm sure we could talk for hours here, but
I know we got to let people continue on in their life.
We'll do another follow up as we go. But I mean, just quick before I let you go. So, are you planning on adding a certain type of asset? What do you see as being your primary cash driver going forward to get you towards that final retirement number?
To get me to the number, it's gonna be flips.
Flips?
Yeah, flips.
So flips are going to build up a base of cash.
Exactly.
And that base of cash is going to go into private lending and things like that.
Yeah.
Private lending, yeah, that's pretty solid in terms of like you can get 12%, 10%, depends.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, it depends how risky you want to go.
Yeah. You could stay in the 6% and be conservative.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy it. So I mean, like, I'm not the type that I can just like sit on a beach forever. Like, I got to keep moving. So I'll whether it be deploying my own capital or using my own capital to continue what I'm doing, I'll still be doing something in real estate for sure. So wherever that that cash allocates, it'll be passive mostly.
Okay. And now to wrap up, words of wisdom for people who follow either of us, people who are trying to get started, or maybe people trying to go to the next step, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, just reach out if you ever have any questions. But if this resonates with anyone, just get started. Dive into it, take it seriously, use it as a business, think of it as a business, not like something that's, don't dabble a little bit. And I always find, this is kind of a long answer, but I always find if you're going to educate yourself and dive in, give yourself a time frame. Otherwise, you're going to be learning and watching YouTube and listening to podcasts forever, and you're never going to pull that trigger. So give yourself like 6 months, educate yourself, get a mentor, pull the trigger.
Yeah. Okay. Well said. Well said. All right, Dave, thanks a lot for doing this.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks. I'll see you on the next one.